Hi, I'm Saz Russell, a relationship coach here to help you have more ease, care, and connection in your relationships. And today I'd like to talk about how to live a more autonomous life as part of my series, Whole on Your Own: How to Stop Waiting for Relationships to Complete You. Now, maybe we've let go of the myth of the one, and we're no longer waiting for that special, magical someone to come along who's finally going to make us feel whole or complete. And maybe we're trying really hard to not control the people in our lives when their behavior doesn't meet our expectations. And yet, we may still have a deep longing to feel special to someone. But what is it that makes us feel special, that is exceptional, important, or meaningful to someone? And monogamy culture and coupleism leads us to believe that somebody else needs to choose us before we feel exceptional. That is the most important, the most loved, the most worthy of time, attention, energy, and care. Most of us worry that we aren't good enough in some way, and we try to fight this feeling by having somebody else pick us because we hope that when somebody else picks us, that will finally solve this feeling of not being good enough, of not being worthy. Basically, we don't belong until we belong to somebody else and they belong to us. Because then we feel loved, special, chosen. And how do people show us that we're loved, special, and chosen? That's largely often through entanglement and enmeshment. And entanglement refers to the degree of connection between people and involves shared life experiences, which may look like marriage, living together, sharing finances, co-parenting. And the more entanglement there is, the easier it is to become enmeshed with one another. Enmeshment happens in a relationship when personal boundaries are unclear and the people become emotionally intertwined with each other. And enmeshment can have negative impacts on our mental health. We may experience a loss of identity where we're prioritizing the other person's wants and needs and neglecting our own. We may have a fear of rejection, feeling like if we don't do or say the right thing, then the other person will leave, the relationship will end, and so will our happiness. And as we give up what we want and need, resentment builds, connection erodes. We may get more passive, aggressive, and manipulative because we're afraid of being direct with our person and we're not even clear on what we want anymore. Our sense of self may become so intertwined with the other person's that we have trouble differentiating what are our feelings and what are their feelings, what are their wants and needs, what are our wants and needs. We can very much make it a we versus a me. We may have difficulty setting boundaries, expressing disagreements, asserting ourselves, saying no. We may engage in codependent behaviors and excessive dependence. We may experience emotional reactivity. And we may experience this constant need to know where our partner is, what they're doing, and who they're doing it with. We may feel jealous or possessive. We may feel more stress and anxiety, and we can start to feel trapped in our relationship. And all of this contributes to a lack of motivation, lower satisfaction, disengagement, apathy, feeling cynical, feeling more stress, feeling more anxiety, feeling more depression, feeling less creativity, feeling more anger and resentment, and eventually contributing to a lack of a sense of purpose or meaning. Yikes. In an enmeshed relationship, we can feel entitled to each other's time and energy. For instance, maybe your partner goes to work and that's their time, that's their work time, but then all of their free time is our time. We can feel really entitled to all of the time that isn't already designated to something that we feel is worth taking a step away from us. Like, yeah, work counts, maybe spending time with their kid counts, but everything else, like, we're supposed to be there for it. And this is where bids for control come in. We try to secure our feelings of specialness by controlling somebody else. The thing is it doesn't work. Even as the other person agrees to greater and greater enmeshment, the feeling of being chosen actually diminishes. We know the other person is organizing around our fears and anxieties, confirming that we have something to be worried about, and it feels yucky to know that somebody is doing something not because they freely want to, but because we're freaking out and issued some kind of demand or ultimatum: do this or else, choose me or else, spend time with me or else. And that feels really different than receiving something from someone freely who wants to give it without coercion. Now, bids for control are not the same thing as advocating and asking for what you want, and then letting the other person freely decide whether or not they want to do that thing. Rather, I'm advocating against making somebody do something they don't want to do or keeping somebody from doing something they do want to do. Now, this bid for control Comes from a very understandable place. We just want to feel special to someone. And your person may actually cave to your demands because they also want you to feel special. They want you to know that you're important, cared for, and loved. But because it feeds your anxiety, it can actually create this never-ending cycle of nothing ever being good enough. Because the antidote to feeling special and chosen isn't actually greater enmeshment, it's greater autonomy. Autonomy is that innate sense of freedom that allows us to act on our own behalf. Autonomy allows us to feel competent, feeling that our actions have an impact on our environment. And within autonomy, we still need connection to relate and care for others and feel a sense of belongingness. Our culture encourages a codependent relationship where we end up relying excessively on one person for our well-being. And even if that one person wants to be our everything, it's impossible for someone to be there every single time we need them in the exact way that we want them to be there. Living a more autonomous life doesn't mean living a life of individualism and isolation. We actually need more friends, more support, a bigger village. But in order to be more autonomous, we do need to be less enmeshed. When you feel that you are free to make choices and have control over your life, you're more likely to experience authenticity, that is, feeling like you're living your life according to who you really are. Rather than having your choices dictated by others, you live according to your values and your interests. Personal development, because you get to learn about yourself, your interests, and your beliefs. You may experience more creativity where you're free to pursue your interests and passions, and greater motivation, helping you want to work towards goals and feeling greater satisfaction when then you achieve something. To be more autonomous and less enmeshed, expect that your time is your own and you have a right to make plans without anybody being entitled to your time. And of course, if you're a parent, you're going to have to figure this out with your kids, figure out who's responsible for which duties at which time. But in order to show up for your co-parent and your children, you actually need to be an autonomous individual beyond the role that you fulfill for the family. To be more autonomous and less enmeshed, make friends and avoid constraints on who those friends can be, and then make plans with those people without having to run it by your other people, as long as you don't already have obligations or plans with them and you aren't engaging in deal breaker sneaky behaviors. Foster privacy in your relationships. If you're financially entangled with somebody, make a budget for joint costs and savings, but also set aside a certain amount of money to spend any way you want that you don't have to run by anybody else. Take trips on your own or with one of those friends. If you don't have many friends or hobbies yet because you've been really enmeshed with somebody else and you're just starting to disentangle, still spend time on your own doing things that you want to do. Take yourself to dinner, go to a museum or on a hike, go to a class or event by yourself. Autonomy is important to well-being and overall life satisfaction. We can be interdependent with others without being codependent and retain our sovereignty. And we do that by consciously choosing how we spend our time and energy rather than defaulting to cultural scripts that tell us what we should want and how we should want it. As Neil Gaiman said, the one thing you have that nobody else has is you. Your voice, your mind, your story, your vision. So write and draw and build and play and dance and live as only you can. If you'd like support living a more autonomous life or getting out of enmeshment in any of your current relationships, go ahead and book a one-to-one or a mediation session with me using the link in my bio. So be it. See to it.